Buckle up as we go through 10 annoying and unexpected moments that can test your patience during an economy flight. Especially number 7. You would never think of it until it happens. So frustrating. Let's start with one of the most frustrating things that should really not happen in economy class, but it does. Arriving at your seat to have a broken USB charging slot or a broken entertainment system. The problem is that with flights being jam-packed, there is no free seat to switch to. And almost as bad as a broken system would be to find a mess in your seat back pocket from the previous flight. These pockets can be a tough area to clean, and things are often missed when flight crew have a very short time period from getting passengers off one flight to boarding passengers onto the next flight. And how about the fact that before you even sit down in your seat, you might not have any overhead bin space available for your carry-on suitcase, and then be asked to check your suitcase despite having paid the same ticket as all of the other passengers who are able to store their stuff in the overhead bin simply because they got there first. And what about boarding the flight, coming up to your seat, and then seeing another passenger, a passenger that should be in the middle seat, either sitting in your aisle or your window seat. And then you look at them and go, hey, that's my seat. And they look at you and say something like,
I'm sorry, I thought this was my seat.
no, you didn't. Who you end up sitting beside is probably the factor that's going to have the biggest impact, positive or negative, on your flight experience. Oftentimes, a fellow passenger is not trying to be a jerk, but they end up unintentionally ruining your flight experience. You'll know exactly what I mean as we get started. And unfortunately, every plane is going to have one of these passengers. The chatty Cathy. Or should I say, Catay. See what I did there? A short hello is fine, but I'm talking about the person that wants to tell you all of their travel plans, where they're flying from, and even throw in some of their childhood dreams while they're at it. Another passenger you will come across on your flight is the nervous flyer. This is the person that is truly so scared that just being around them has you on edge. This is the person you sit beside that is like for every little bump and sound that you hear on the flight. It puts me truly on so much edge, even though I have no fear of flying at this point, just to be seated beside someone that is truly so afraid. You'll also come across the no shower nomad, especially terrible when that passenger has decided to spray themselves with every fancy duty-free shop perfume before they board the flight. Then there's the sick guy that is truly too sick to fly, but decided to fly anyway. I was once the sick guy when leaving India. I had a horrible case of Delhi belly, which was truly the worst food poisoning I have ever had in my life, and was so desperate to get home that nothing was stopping me from taking that overnight flight. And then there's the parent with an upset kid. Or kids. I feel bad for these parents, but it's also kind of like, please don't sit near me. Let us know down in the comments if you have ever sat beside one of these classic passenger profiles, or if you have your own funny experiences to share. You should not be subject to when you decide to purchase an economy class ticket is to end up sitting beside a loud snorer, especially one that also has a wandering foot that creeps over to your side after they fall asleep. This is just another incredibly annoying, but usually not intentionally malicious experience that you might have on an economy flight. And this next one is the worst, but you would never think about it until it actually happens. Oftentimes, there is a new movie release that half the plane ends up watching. Unfortunately, the passenger beside you might start watching it first, and then you end up getting all of the spoilers by sneaking peeks at their screen. So you're trying to watch your movie, and then it's like, bam! Spoiler alert from the neighbor's screen. I always tell myself I won't look, but then by telling myself I won't look, I end up looking. Almost as bad is when someone in front, beside, or behind you decides to read a physical book and ends up leaving their overhead light on for the entire flight. You might enjoy watching my video on flight essentials that I always fly with to be able to zone out while on the plane, regardless of who you end up seated beside. That video is linked in the description for you to watch next. Speaking of people sitting around you, you might be lucky enough to have a little seat kicker sitting right behind you, or even a passenger that decides to get comfy by putting their knees up on the back of your seat pushing it forward and leaving you in this awkward seated position. And if you have ever flown economy, you are probably no stranger to a blast of Arctic air, followed by the Sierra heat in the cabin, cold coffee, warm soda, or even getting a choice of pasta or pasta by the time the food service makes it to your seat. These are just a few of the quirky aspects of economy flights that we could certainly live without. But hey, we're all in this together, and with a bit of humor and understanding, we can make even the longest flights bearable. If you have ever taken a flight, you probably have a funny story to share, and I would love to read them down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you all the best on your next flight, and I also hope you'll subscribe to join us back here for more travel tips, stories, and advice next week. All the best. Bye.
Hey, almost done. Almost done. Almost done. Yeah.